Welcome back, everyone, to Master of the Universe podcast. Joey Cage here, along with
Christopher J.
You know what I'm saying? All right, so we're actually on our seventh fucking film in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, folks. Wes Craven's New Nightmare, or New Nightmare, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 7, whatever you want to call it, The Ascension. That's what Wes wanted to originally call it. And man, I mean, these are one of those franchises. Like, I know we've had our ups and downs, and even the bad ones. Like, you know, I've had some fun. Would you agree with that, or what do you think, man?
Oh yeah, I've had a lot of fun covering this movies and everything. I mean, it's like I said, like we said from the beginning when I first jumped on board with the horror podcast. It's something I really had little to no exposure to as a child or even a teen, and then you know, it's a new world for me. It's a new thing for me, but that's how you develop as a person, is you know, learn new things. So.
Yeah, when I see, I'm glad you brought that up. Like, growing up, like, for me, it was completely opposite from you, I'm sure. Like, I grew up, and like when I was real little, I would rent videos, and they were like, it was like Thundercats and shit like that, just basic. And then I went through a phase where I would rent like video games. It was, of course, when the NES was still out, and then Sega was out too at the time. But of course, like, the NES was the more of the thing I was into, and well, I remember actually the NES was like the only thing, and then eventually the Sega, and then whatever, I got into wrestling, and then horror movies, and I would go back and forth. Like, I'd get like just whatever wrestling pay-per-view I saw, and then, you know, the horror movies. And I remember going to Pop and Go Video here in San Antonio and seeing the poster for Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And if you've seen the poster, you're like, whoa, you know, like, this looks crazy. You know, Freddy looks different, looks whatever the fuck, especially when you're like, I mean, I'm guessing 94 when this movie came out, so I was like, you know,
Friday, October 14th, 1994.
Yeah, I was about, you know, by the time I found out about it and it was going to video, I was probably already 8, because, you know, it took some time to get to the rental places. And I was like, what? There's a part 7, you know? And like, so that's when I had found out about Freddy's Dead, so I watched that. And I was like, what? And it still scared me. Like, I know, like, we were talking about it last time, but it actually kind of scared me, some of the parts, like the witch part. But it was something like a kid could watch, you know what I mean? Like, and have fun with it. So, A Nightmare on Elm Street 7, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. How did it come about? Basically, Wes Craven, the director from the original one, just wasn't happy with them doing sequels for Freddy or A Nightmare on Elm Street. He just wanted to do one. And producer, the president, whatever you want to call him, for New Line Cinema, Bob Shea, was the one that was like, he had owned the rights to everything, because I think Wes Craven sold him the rights from the first movie, like, in order to be able to make it and all kinds of crap. So he did that. You know, he continued to make sequels, because the first one did well, second one did great, then it kept on going after that. And then it kind of ran out of steam by part 6, and they're like, well, you know, after that shit, we got to get Wes back, you know, because what do you do, right, when like things aren't working and you get to part 6? Like, you know, spoiler alert for the fans out there. It's like I enjoyed part 6 more than 7, but we'll get into it as we go about it. And part 6 made like 35 million, and this one made 19 million. So yeah, that's a big difference, dude. So we're gonna go ahead and go.
Can I just say, it's one of those things where, like, and here's another thing that happened. It's funny that this came out in 1994, because what else came out in 1994 that its origins are in 1984? Do you remember?
No idea.
The Next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank.
I've never seen The Next Karate Kid, but I've heard about it. Yeah, I know Hilary Swank, dude.
I did. Okay.
That's that. She comes out in that movie with Clint Eastwood, right? $1 Million Baby.
Yeah, and so here's the thing: is like, so Karate Kid is 1984, Nightmare on Elm Street is 1984. Literally a month apart that same year is when they both debuted. So August of '94 is when Next Karate Kid came out. I remember my grandmother almost took me to go see that in the theater, but I mean, it's just, it was detached from the original story, and it's just. It was just a vestige from the 80s, and it's like, it's one of those things where when you keep trying to hold on to something that it's already ran its course, it's already past its time, and you just got to evolve to the next thing.
Yeah, they couldn't think of any good new ideas to keep the story going. They just thought of an idea and ran with it, even though if it wasn't good or not, I hate that. Like, I'm one of those guys just for, like, music. Like, I don't just make a song because I make up a riff. Like, I have to make up a riff and I have to like the riff, you know what I mean? Not just because, I made it, let me go ahead and put it on the album or whatever. It's like, no, I have to really think this is a good riff for me to keep it and actually go with it. It seems like some of these ideas for some of those other films, like the one you just mentioned, it's like, yeah, it sounds like, I've never seen it, but I'm pretty sure it's a piece of shit.
And in other words, what you're saying is when you write music, you're writing and playing from the heart. You're not just writing music just to go, oh, look, everybody, I wrote this song, I'm cool.
Yeah, check it out. Check out this new song I got. Like, no, it's like I've written many riffs, some that I just forgot because I was like, nah, I don't like it, And just because you write something doesn't mean you should keep it. But speaking of that, so, we're talking about Wes and, like, me and Mark were joking earlier about Wes Craven being like the Vince Russo, and of course we have two different takes on Vince Russo. But I know you haven't got through all the Wes Craven movies, and I love the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I think it's a great film, one of the best. And like,
absolutely.
I've always kind of gone back and forth with part 1, 2, and 3, which is my favorite. But it's like the one that's gonna scare me, and the one that I'm gonna watch on Halloween is definitely the first one. Great film. But as far as Wes, they called him like the master of horror and everything. It's like when he came out with this film, I definitely had to question what like the master of. I'm like, he kind of recycled it. We're gonna go, like I said, we're gonna get through it. He kind of recycled a lot of ideas, and it's funny. I think that you had hit the nail on top of the head when you're like, this reminds me of Scream.
Yes, okay, and I'm glad you said that. Thank you for bringing that up. So, as I'm watching this movie, and once you get around the 30-minute mark, which is where I watched it the first time and then stopped, and then later on, a few days later, I watched it from beginning to end in full in one sitting. But just even that first time, I just remember saying to myself, this movie feels like Scream, and they're only 26 months apart.
Mm-hmm. And you had no idea Wes Craven directed Scream, right?
I didn't.
Mm-hmm. That's funny you had mentioned it, because they feel very 90-ish, right? They call it meta, to where it has like the self-awareness kind of shit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
and it's just like, yeah, it's that mid 90s kind of we're really trying to play the
wink
angle. Yeah.
The way you say the wink and the nod, the wink and the nod kind of gimmick, So yeah, this film is definitely that. But then they try to go back towards the end and kind of that we're in a movie again. But before we get too deep, we'll talk about the film. Do you want to tell us how this bad boy starts off, Christopher J?
I'm glad to do so, and it's funny because like this movie is so different from a lot of the other nightmares. A lot of other, not even horror movies, a lot of movies in general. This movie comes in hot, like right from the get-go. It's not 2 or 3 minutes of music with some opening credits. I mean, from the jump, it's showing you a scene, and it's a scene that you're trying to follow as a story. So you've got this movie set, and well, you don't know it's a movie set at first. For all you know, as a new viewer, it could be like something Freddy's doing, and you see this claw hand, robotic metallic claw hand moving by itself, and you think it might be supernatural. Well, then it's been revealed that it's actually a movie set, and remote controlling the hand, everything, and there's an actor playing Freddy, and wearing the sweater and all that stuff. But then the swerve, the Vince Russo swerve, bro, is where the hand starts.
What if the hand, instead of being a Freddy glove, bro, it's a metal, robotic, mechanized glove, man? It's more brutal than Freddy could ever be.
And then you put it on Max Cady, bro. No, but
it does sound like a Vince Russo swerve, though. It's like, how about instead of having the Freddy glove, we have like an upgraded glove, right? Like you have Godzilla, and then you have Mecha Godzilla, but you have Mecha Freddy now, dude.
The mechanized Freddy. Take it to the year 2000, bro. Well, this fucking mechanized robotic remote control, whatever the fuck thing, that is created.
Yeah.
It goes rogue for some reason and starts attacking two of the, I guess you call them key grips or tech grips or whatever, and it starts attacking them, and they can't get it to stop.
Yeah, and Wes Craven actually comes out in that scene. He's the one that goes, someone stop. He says, cut the effects. I think that's what he says. Cut the effects. So Wes Craven, of course, he's like that's the real Wes Craven. For those of you that don't know, he's the director from the first film. He's in the film. So it's a film that he's directing, but he's also an actor in the film playing himself. And then Heather has the dream that she's that they're working on a new Nightmare film. So I guess it's a nightmare that this is actually coming to fruition because it actually is happening because she finds out later on. But she's having the dream, and the glove goes haywire, and it kills the special effects artists is basically what they are, because they're like, that's what you would just call something like that, special effects. So it kills these two dudes, and she wakes up to an earthquake.
And that's
so what do you? Okay. Yeah, what are you thinking when this happens? You're like, oh, okay, we're having dreams.
I'm like, yeah, okay. So she's having a dream about people making a movie about Freddy Krueger, and then it going rogue or going haywire, as you say, or whatever. She wakes up to earthquakes, and then her husband's hand gets cut, but he won't admit. This husband, he's being the tough guy type. He's trying to be the I'm dad. I'm going to keep everyone safe.
I fell down the stairs.
He said a picture frame in his hand. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And so, like, what do you call it? So then they're just going on about their day, and then she knows she's got an important, TV appearance to make and everything. So he leaves to go to his job, which he's like a special effects guy for movies.
Yes.
And then that's when, of course, as soon as the woman is left alone, that's when the trouble begins.
Well, what better way? But yeah, exactly. They play on that. Let me isolate, Heather, Nancy. I'll probably call her both. But yeah, he goes and he's left alone. Is it? I don't think it's this scene yet. It's probably later on. But we see the Freddy marks go across the wall. I don't know if it's like right after this earthquake or like I think it might be later. But I know like all we're really seeing, we haven't seen Freddy yet, bro. We haven't seen Freddy. It's just all these fucking what do you call them? I couldn't even think of the word, but you just see all these gimmicks as Freddy. And we don't see Freddy for actually quite a while. And then and the thing is this whole story is kind of based around some aspects of real life, like the actual life of Heather Langenkamp, who plays Nancy. Like the phone calls she's gonna get that we're gonna talk about right now is actually what she did go through. She had phone calls from a fan. I'm assuming doing this, like talking in the Freddy voice. I don't think she really. I've never heard her like explain it, but she was saying like she would get calls from obsessed fans.
Mm-hmm. She tells the husband before he leaves, because he checks on her and he says, hey, are you still getting those phone calls? And then she goes downstairs. Dylan, the son, 9-year-old, 8-year-old, whatever, he's making breakfast and he's got oatmeal and he's making Freddy's face in the oatmeal bowl.
And and that's like before any of the crazy shit starts happening. So there must be something going on at home, dude,
And then he makes the fucking. Well, then she gets the fucking phone calls, and it's a 1, 2, and it's okay. It's a cheesy voice, someone calling in, and like you said, very good point. I hadn't even thought of that, and I should have. But for all she knows, it could very well just have been some crazy obsessed fan who got her number. And of course, it's 1994, so 90% of people don't yet have caller ID, so she wouldn't know who's calling her. And then that happens, and she gets another call, and then she flips out on him. Only this time it's the limo driver to pick her up to go.
It sounds like you, dude. It's all like, leave us alone, you son of a bitch. You keep fucking with me, Mark. You keep fucking with me. I'll fucking keep showing you. Like, Chris. And you're like, oh, Mom, sorry. Yeah, I thought it was hilarious, dude. Like, you still getting those phone calls and then like it cuts to like a flashback and it's some kind of fucking Ray voice message. Hey, dude. When are we gonna hang out, bro? Chris is like shaking. Yeah, it's like this movie's like a parody almost. Like it's like because they have like, well, you still getting those phone calls, and we're like, what? And then it's that that Freddy's coming for you. And you had said something. You go. It sounds like the voice from Scream. And like I had like I'll tell you like, oh yeah, it does. But I had never thought about it, and I was like, wow, it sounds exactly the second time. It sounds exactly. But you can tell, like, the way Wes Craven is as a director, that like somehow or another, like the voice that did the gimmick Freddy voice, or if it is Freddy, whatever, like it really stuck with him because obviously he carried it over to screen. But there, yeah, she goes to have to do a show with the real Robert Englund dressed as, you know, Freddy, but the Freddy from before.
and he's even like, and he's not breaking kayfabe on the studio set, like when they're at that talk show.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't break kayfabe until like that interview, that TV show's over, and they're both out of makeup, and you know they're dressed up normal, and they're walking out the back of the studio, and he's being like super nice, you know, being, you know, Chris Karam around people, you know, hey, if there's anything I can ever do, please let me do. Hey, I hope you're doing it. He kisses her on the cheek and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that whole little sequence is actually what happened with Wes Craven. He was actually doing a show with Robert Englund, who plays Freddy, and he was saying like how like the parents were there with a bunch of kids, and the kids wearing like Freddy shirts and outfits, and like I guess that like angered him to try and like to see what Freddy had, you know, quote unquote become, like as a character that the kids love, or like wanted, like they had, you know, like a fan, you know what I mean? Like nowadays, I mean, you see a lot of people like, you know, like me. I don't consider you a horror fan. Like you're a person that reviews things, whatever it can be, and you try and dissect it. But you're not like, oh, I'm a horror fan. I love everything horror. Like me, I'm a horror fan. Like I'll have you know Freddy and Michael Myers and Jason action figures. I'm a fan. Well, Wes Craven, like, I guess he didn't like that. Like he wanted people to be afraid of his art. You know, I guess you can say. And so he saw that, and he was kind of like, I guess that was offended, you know, like because he's trying to convey these nightmares, literally nightmares, and people are like, "Oh, Freddy, woohoo, fuck yeah," you know.
Correct me if I'm wrong? Didn't they? I read something. Didn't they make a fucking TV series for 2 seasons?
Yes.
With Freddy Krueger? No.
They did. It was Freddy's Nightmares, I think it's what it's called. And it was, I've heard that the first few episodes are they're pretty good, and then after that they're just like stupid and ridiculous. Which, I mean, with most TV shows at that time, where there was even a Friday the 13th, believe it or not, TV series, but there's no Jason. I think it was just called Friday the 13th. Yeah, and like, you know, they're hit or misses. There's like basically in that time period, like I think in that era you really couldn't make a good like horror TV show, because horror is like a lot of effects, you know what I mean? You have a lot of gimmicks. As a show like Full House, you're not going to have anything like that. You're just actors and that's it. You know, Married with Children, just actors. But when you have horror, you have the actors and you're adding, you know, all these other gimmicks to it. It's more expensive and it can come off as pretty shitty and shit like that. But yeah, they did have the. In fact, we should probably do a few episodes for like our Halloween season, you know what I mean? Just do the Freddy's Nightmares or Tales from the Crypt, now that I think about it. But
exactly, and the thing is, I gotta say, just to weigh in on that, what you were getting at, I gotta agree with Wes Craven. Like, if you're going off of Nightmare 1, Nightmare 2, and even Nightmare 3, Freddy isn't something that like little kids should be cheering. Oh, Freddy's cool, I want to dress up like Halloween, I want to have his act. No, he's a fucking villain. And that's the thing. It's like, and it's the same thing there, where the Freddy character got prostituted and got like watered down and got likable by even kids. Who kids of all people definitely shouldn't be like him. But I mean, that same thing is kind of reminds you of what's going on in wrestling the past 15 years, right?
Yeah, for sure. So when Heather returns home after, you know, hanging out with Robert, like you said, Freddy, working Freddy, Robert Englund. She goes home to Dylan watching the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and this is like a pattern throughout the entire film. It's like Wes Craven's trying to get over that his film is like the best film, and it's causing it should I guess it should cause trauma, or I don't know, or but she's like, she walks in and like the kid's like just frozen watching like the TV, the super small TV, by the way. And she's like, Dylan, what are you watching? And I think this, I don't remember exactly, but the scene is like Tina when she's in the body bag or something like that. And she like takes, I think instead of turning off the TV, she might unplug it or whatever. And then Dylan just starts screaming, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why is he screaming? Because he's what? I mean, I've been scared. I mean, I kind of understand because I've told the Nightmare 5 story like a few times where I was like, oh god, Dad, but I was like, because no one was there, not my dad wasn't in front of me, I wouldn't have been screaming. But yeah, he starts screaming, and then she calls Chase and tells her like that he's acting like strange, and she doesn't know that he's working on the new film for A Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, no one's told her, but they're working on it. And that's when we get, he tells her that the two dudes, I forget their names, but the two special effects guys that she saw in her dream, by the way, die. And they didn't show up to work, so that's kind of a wink and a nod to us that, oh shit, maybe what she's dreaming in the quote-unquote real world. Did we mention that? I don't even think we really gave the story of that. What this story is supposed to be, right, is that the actors of the original Nightmare on Elm Street are supposed to be really haunted by a force that's supposed to be Freddy Krueger. So that's what's going on. We're in like the meta world, right? This is supposed to be real life. The actress Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy in part 1, is like, we're almost seeing like a documentary. It's like just her, living her day-to-day life where she's getting these phone calls like she is in real life. And her husband, who really was a special effects artist, like it's like a mixture of like whatever like Wes Craven could grab, he just said, fuck it, I'm going to put it in the film, So he tells her that they didn't show up to work, right. So he's gonna go on the way home. So what do you think about that first death? Yeah, the Chase death and everything. I mean, it needed to happen because it's a fucking Freddy Krueger movie. I mean, people have to die progressively along the way. It's the death we needed, dude.
Hey, because we can recover faster from it,
Yeah.
But no, I mean that's the thing is just it's interesting because he's listening to this is another indicator of how 90s this movie is. He's driving home, dozing off, listening to "Losing My Religion" by R.E.M. And I mean, I'll tell you, like being a few years older than you, I can tell you, like in 1994, and I was 12 years old, that song was fucking huge, enormous.
Oh yeah, it still is, And then R.E.M. is like for sleep too, so it gets it over. So it's like a double.
You son of a bitch! I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, when you were saying you're losing my religion, we're like, yeah, it's like a double card. It's like, oh, it's the REM, and it's losing my religion. Da 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 da. So anyway,
and then she gets called by like. She gets called by the cops come to her house. That's right. The cops come to her house. They let her know. She's like, oh, is he okay? Ma'am, I think it's more serious than that. She has to go to the morgue area of the hospital, see his fucking body, toe tagged and all that stuff, and then sees the fucking Freddy claws on his body. And here's one of the things I love, because this added to the realism of it. I mean, as much as you can criticize the movie on a whole or whatever, you have to say what's good is good where it's good. And what's good is she threw up right there, because that's a natural, normal human thing. When you go through like a stressful, anxietous trauma like that, a lot of people throw up in response to situations like that. So I thought that was good.
Yeah, so yeah, Chase dies, and like it's kind of like a callback to like Nightmare 5, to where Dan, like, I think Alice calls him. I don't remember why. Yeah, because I know he's there at the pool party with everyone, and then like he gets called back by Alice, and then yeah, he ends up just like in a truck, listening to the radio, exactly like the way this is, like where he's falling asleep, all the same things. And I point that out because I'm like, Wes Craven, like, even though he was trashing all these other fucking Nightmare films, it's like he's doing he's taking ideas from Nightmare films or from other films, and this is just another one where the claw comes out of like the seat and just stabs him, and he runs off and then that's what they say is like, oh, he fell asleep at the wheel, so, and then that's how he died. So we're like, okay, we can buy that, but then you see the claw marks, you're like, wait a minute now. And then they have the funeral for him, and then you see a bunch of fucking actresses and actors from all the other Freddys. We see Rod from Part 1. We see Tuesday Night from, Freddy 4.
I thought I recognized her.
Yeah, and then we see there's who else do we see there? I forget, but I know we see those two for sure. But there's like a few people, and they were saying that they had wanted to put Johnny Depp in here, but they were Wes said he wanted to have Johnny Depp in there, but that he was too big of a star to. That
he was too expensive by 1994.
Well, he was saying like oh, he was too big of a star for him to ask, and then but Johnny Depp said like, oh yeah, he would have done it for sure because that's like I think it was Johnny's first role. And then I've always heard people laugh. They're like, yeah, because like he wasn't going to come out in the film for Wes, but he came out on Freddy's Dead. I was like, yeah, no shit. Like I don't like Freddy, I don't like New Nightmare, but I mean, for someone that gave you your start, I think you would do him a favor to come out in his movie, for a discounted price. You know what I mean? But that's what we see John Saxon again too, and who's like.
And can I? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Who's like Heather's only best friend in the film, dude.
Yes. Heather's only best friend. I mean, maybe to some extent you could consider Julie too, but John Saxon is that father figure, voice of reason, guidance, mentor to her. You see that when they're at the park and Dylan is playing there, and he gets on the top of that thing and almost fucking kills himself. But I like that. But the other thing too, that I gotta say, it's going back real quick to that funeral scene, that got at me, dude. That got in my head, and I mean, it gave me that sadness, depression, like beyond even when I had that in my feelings, as the kids say these days, moment for Nightmare 5, because she gets struck that vision, hallucination of the coffin shaking up and her being dragged in the coffin too, and he wakes up in the coffin and says to her, "Stay with me, Heather," or whatever. It's like that fucking got at me.
Yeah, when Freddy pops out of the coffin, right, he's like dragging Dylan down and shit. That's the first time we see Freddy in the whole film, I think, and it's like,
yes, it is.
It's like I don't know how many minutes in, and I'm like, we finally get to see Freddy, and it's just like, Wes talks about getting Freddy over, not being dark enough, and he has him in the middle of the day, laughing. I understand he's dragging like a kid through a coffin, but it's kind of like, to me, kind of generic. I mean, for the first time you watch it, yeah, you're like, whoa, what the fuck, because you're not expecting it, because the film's like, what are we watching? Because there hasn't been any much real Freddy. We haven't seen Freddy's shadow, nothing. We just seen the glove get itself, like the glove's got 3 kills, dude. It's got the 2 special effect guys and Chase, and then it's dragging Dylan down into the casket. But yeah, when I saw that, I was, it is kind of sad, because you feel bad for them being alone, like after they lose their father. And then what happens after the funeral?
So after that is after the funeral is when she has her conversation with John Saxon, aka you may remember him as Lieutenant Donald Thompson, and I don't want to say he's downplaying or being dismissive, but he's playing he's kind of what you should be saying if you're in that adult, older mentor role to somebody. He's telling her, it's not what you think it is. It's not this going on. It's not this real. Freddy is fake. It's all acting. I mean, like, he's basically telling her that. I'm not quoting him verbatim, but that's basically what he's telling her. And not to be so worried. And if you need anything, just reach out to me. Is that
when they're at the playground?
That's when they're at the playground park, and of course that has to be when fucking Dylan gets on top of that one thing and jumps off, and she barely saves him.
How dangerous were playgrounds when we grew up?
Very.
They were just like that, right?
Yes.
Where you could just like come out of that. It was funny because I was seeing this, and I'm like, the most scary thing that I see about this scene is that I was a kid going to those playgrounds, and that shit could have really happened. Because I remember being like literally on top of the monkey bars, not like using the monkey bars the way they're supposed to be used, but actually sitting on top of them because I would see other kids doing it. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, it's like a fucking neck breaker waiting to happen. You know?
God, yeah. And I've heard the stories from my dad about when I was like 4 years old, because I forgot it, but like we'd be at a playground somewhere, and I'd get on like the big ass jungle gyms and get to like climbing it and get up top of it and everything. And my mom used to like freak out and be worried and stuff, and my dad would be all, "Don't worry, Brenda. He knows what he's doing. He's being very methodical. He's being very calculating, you know."
Don't worry, Brenda. Calm your candy ass down.
And then I've had to hear these stories, and I guess it sounds like me, because I wasn't any kind of reckless risk taker. You know, I'm too scared of heights for that, but I still wanted to play. But yeah, we grew up with some very fucking dangerous, and they didn't have these soft artificial tarmac things like they have, surfaces like they got nowadays. Yeah. No, we just had fucking rocks or sand.
Yeah, you just had rocks when I grew up, man, for sure.
Now, from the playground, she goes down the steps, sees Dylan in the kitchen. He's laid out the words, "Answer the phone." She answers the fucking phone. A tongue comes out the fucking phone, and then he's foaming at the mouth.
Yeah. So again, we're like talking about how like Wes kind of copies and you know will reuse ideas. You know, when he was at the playground, like they start playing this like music, and it's all like. It reminds me of the fucking Omen, and then of course, like, "Just for you, Damien," and like, his name's Dylan, so it's similar. They say that I was like, how often do they say the name Dylan? And I had checked to see, because I was just like, everything's about this kid, you know, like, and all the other films, they're like teenagers, but of course Dylan's probably like 7 or 8 years old or whatever, supposed to be in the film. They say his name 103 fucking times in this film. Can you fucking believe that shit?
They did say it a lot. I did notice that.
It's like Dylan. It's like, I mean, okay, but yeah. So he steals like another Omen gimmick, and then yeah, they're at home, and then you know he has like her Bible or something. And it says "Answer the phone" that like burnt or whatever the fuck.
Yes, that's what he did. That's right. You're right. I really tell now that you say it, it makes sense because I see the writing on them. But that's what he did. He burned the letters A, you know, on one page, and on another page, S, you know, so on and so on.
Yeah, I was just I don't know what it is. That's all my mind could comprehend was "Answer the phone." But like, are they Bible pages and are they burned? Like, which doesn't make any sense, but okay. And then that's when the foam you said comes out of it, right? Like this does. Does the phone say anything, or does Freddy say anything? I don't remember. I just remember phone.
I don't remember words being said, and that's not to say there weren't. But what I do remember is that fucking tongue coming out of the bottom of the receiver, and then Dylan begins foaming at the mouth.
Yeah.
Then he falls to the floor, faints to the floor, and then you see the fucking foam come out of the mouth part of the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So like it's like working off of him or whatever, which again was another. Part 1 reference when, you know, because he has the you're my boyfriend now, you're my girlfriend now, Nancy. So he's already done that earlier. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you, and now he's got gimmicks coming out of the phone, which is like, so you're just gonna be doing all the stuff you've done before, except you've only shown the actual Freddy once at the funeral. And we're like 40 minutes in at this point. Like I didn't time it. Like maybe I should have. But I wasn't gonna waste my fucking time, like say, oh well, at minute 40. No, it seems about minute 40, we've only seen Freddy once, dude. So when you're watching this, are you like, is it crossing your mind? Like, I understand they're trying to go for a darker tone, but is there gonna be a Freddy in this fucking movie?
Yeah, I mean, you're waiting to see when he becomes more of a visible presence in the film, which at this point. All you have of him is, you know, the claw is obviously him. It's just the claw by itself. Then you see him that one time during the funeral in the ground, and that's really it. That's all you have to go by. Like, you don't see the full embodied in the, I guess, flesh Freddy, you know, until much later on. But up to this 45-minute point, let's call it, no, you only see that one facial appearance of him. And so, you know, fucking Dylan, Okay, Dylan gets, as Vince McMahon would say, Dylan gets admitted to a medical facility, not a hospital, but a medical facility, and goes to the ICU and whatnot. Now, Heather then is driving home, and she is going to call. I think she gets called for a meeting with Wes Craven and goes to his mansion. Like, it looks like it's in the middle of some deserty ass hills, but he's got this nice ass swimming pool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they.
From part one, that's what part one got him, dude. I'm just kidding.
I think you and our former podcaster Jason are the ones that said it's the house that Freddy built, New Line Cinema.
yeah, it's a working, Wes Craven house, but it's like, oh, he's got this beautiful house, Wes Craven. And it was funny because in order for Wes to be able to do this, because of course, like we had talked about earlier, that he had to sell the rights for to be able to do the first one, he felt like really screwed from Bob Shaye for not getting all the money from the sequels and the character and all that. So I'm sure like he got something like this house after that, But yeah, they go ahead and meet, and she asks him, and that's when Wes reveals to her that he's been working on a well, I think she talks to Bob Shaye first. And he's all like, oh, yeah, and he's got some really great ideas. And she's kind of like freaking out because all this shit's going on, right? And
she did.
Yeah.
You're right. That's what happened was after the TV show, the morning talk show, then she gets, after Robert Englund goes his way, she gets on her phone, that fucking call from Bob Shaye. And she's like, now you have to meet now because she's stressed. She just wants to go home and be left alone. Yeah. But she has to go to Bob Shaye's office, and he pitches the idea.
Yeah. And he's all like, no, he's been having nightmares again. He's really excited about it. And she's like, he's been having nightmares? And she's playing it like, like it's a shoot, like this is all making sense now that whatever Wes is dreaming is coming to life. You know what I mean? Basically that's what it is like, if Wes is having nightmares, it's happening in real life, dude. And, but then, yeah, he meets Wes, and, I think it's at that point, where like they're talking, and like in the background we could see like, instead of having like a typewriter, it's like a computer typer, but it's like old school, like fucking PCIO nationwide kind of fucking system where like, you have to, do all these gimmicks just to write anything. And they're like saying what Wes has already written on his computer. That's that part, right? It's all like, if you're willing to play Nancy, when the last time and shit, all that bullshit.
But this is what sets up for a letdown here. So he's basically in his scene, he's explaining to her, hey, look, there's more to Freddy than just Freddy, and it's not just a fictional movie that you were once an actress and a key character in.
Yes.
So Freddy is the current period, contemporary period embodiment of the evil force of energy in the universe.
Yeah.
So the only way we ever keep it, as his explanation goes, we only ever keep him at bay when we're doing movies about him. So we need to do one more movie about him so that he'll stay at bay and leave everybody alone. Basically, is what I took from that.
Yeah, exactly. And then I don't remember if it's like basically the Robert Englund scenes are few and far between. And I know at one point, like, she's talking to Robert about like Freddy and like kind of like being concerned, but she doesn't say what's going on. She just wants to meet with him, and Robert's making a painting because he's a real painter, and he has like a painting of like the new Freddy that we see also. And she's like, no, Heather, I can't meet with you right now. Today's not a good time, And later on in the film, she's all like tries to get in contact with him. And then, like, it goes to voicemail. It's all like, hi, this is Robert. We can't come to the phone right now. We're going to be gone for some time or something like that.
And he said, this is what he says, because I actually recorded this on my phone when I was watching that, because I rewound it and recorded this, because that was great shit. But it's something like, you can leave a message, but we're going to be gone for a while.
Yeah, we're going to be gone for a while. And I started laughing when I heard that. I'm like, man, they couldn't think of better dialogue, or... it was like cheesy, but it was like trying to make fucking Heather feel like kind of like isolated, like her only two friends in the world, Wes Craven, four friends, Bob Shaye, Wes Craven, Robert Englund, and John Saxon are all kind of like, everyone's fucking, running away, and I was just like, oh my god, like if they would have had like different characters, or like had the other like, if they would have had Robert Englund being haunted by Freddy, where we could actually see it, not just him painting it, I would have been very interested. Or John Saxon or Wes, and Wes even had like, I had saw these ideas that he had talked about on Never Sleep Again, and I thought they were great, which is like a documentary of making all the films. And he was saying like that Freddy was like torturing him to make the film, and that like he even cut his eyelids off, and like he was in the back of a van, like someone like had drove him, and he was like in the back of the van to keep going to type what that Freddy. It was just like kind of crazy, and I was like, man, that would have been more interesting than what we got, because it's just like, oh, instead of all that craziness, we got Wes Craven in his mansion, you know. You know, that was it. And Dylan, I
agree with you. I want to say I agree with you. That would have been a much better angle to approach it from, or do this from, than just Freddy's the embodiment of evil. We need to keep making Freddy movies to keep him away.
And Freddy's just torturing Nancy.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, how about Freddy torture Bob Shea? How about Freddy torture Wes Craven? How about Freddy torture Robert Englund? How about Freddy have a gimmick for each of them? Whatever, like, we could come up with. Like, he, instead of just, like, it's her by herself, her husband's gone, her kid's screaming, she's fucking trying to get in contact with everyone else, and they're playing, they're fucking, you know, no-selling it. Like, it just kind of feels like bland, like we're just following this character around and nothing's really going on. You know?
And you know what I love about what you just outlined right there?
What's up?
You talk about redoing, you know, Freddy from the ground up. You talk about, you know, making a new Nightmare and all this stuff. You just not only made a new Nightmare movie, and what you just said, you made a new Dream Warriors, because now it's a thing where, hey, guess what? Freddy is real. It wasn't just a movie these actors were in. And now he's haunting the actors that comprised the film in 1984. So he's coming after all of them, and they have to unite as the Dream Warriors against the real actual Freddy.
The Dream Warriors 2? Yeah, the real actors and the real Dream Warriors. Yeah, it's like we're just following Heather, and then Heather, like, she has a dream, but just in the first scene, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like, we're like, and the only reason for that is for it to dupe us. Like, oh shit, this is how we're starting off a movie with the glove killing people. Oh no, we're just working. That's just us working on a movie, and then we're gonna follow Heather Langenkamp for an hour. You know, it's like, okay, what? Well, they should have, like, you know, she could have had her nightmare, and that could have been her intro. And then they go to Wes Craven, you know, like writing something that, and he's kind of like reminiscing about what he's thinking about. And then Bob Shea, like, yeah, I mean, and Robert Englund, like, they missed out on the opportunity. It's just like Heather Langenkamp is like I mean, I enjoy her, but like to just follow her throughout the film being like somebody that's got no power to the end is kind of boring. After all this crap, Heather takes Dylan, you know, he's like traumatized after what, of course, is what happened. Like, after seeing A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 times, he can't bear it. So she takes him to a hospital where Dr. Hefner, like, she suspects like abuse or whatever. And like the first thing she goes to is, your son, has he seen one of your films? Isn't that the most? I mean, okay. So we're gonna like this. Talk about this in full because it's ridiculous. I'll just say the hospital scene. So she takes him to the hospital, and like at 1 minute, Dylan's like throwing up on Heather or Nancy, Exorcist style. You know, we got the scene where, you know, Wes goes back to part 1. He goes to the well and redoes the Tina scene, which we'll get in more detail. Is great, which is probably like the highlight of the film. But like this whole hospital scene, isn't it fucking over the top ridiculous?
It's like I've never seen like just, yeah, because it's you've got this doctor who's just like browbeating a mother and like talking to her like she's her daughter or something. It's like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah,
you know,
exactly. Like, if she's her daughter, like that's talk you would hear from like somebody like it's an overbearing mother about everything, right?
This woman, this doctor here, she reminds me of this woman. So when I was a teenager, a child and a teenager, all the way deep into middle school, I used to always spend a lot of time at my grandmother's house, my mom's mom. You know, and there was this woman. What happened was, it got to the point where there were so many of, you know, my grandmother and my great grandparents was, you know, needing, you know, a helper around the house, and she was in their age group, and I remember her name was Margaret Clue, and she was one of those old school old ladies that, like, anybody under the age of 30, she just had every right in the world to just talk down to them because she's old, and because she comes from an old school time when, you know, children are seen, not heard, and you have to always respect the authority of every adult who's older than you, you know, that kind of thing. And I could not stand that woman. She was just always talking down, always everything you do is wrong, and every idea you have is stupid, and oh my gosh.
But yeah, she's like, I'm like, and they were kind of like doing that because, of course, the MPAA or MPA, whatever you want to call it, I forgot the name of it, but the people that like give the ratings for the film, like, you know, what rating they get, you know, like they have, I think one of the people was called Hefner. So it's like a work on that, like saying like, oh, because of this film, your son's acting like that. So I guess it was kind of like a work on that. But it's like so over the top and fucking goddamn ridiculous. But it's just like ridiculous how the nurse, you know, or the head doctor, I can't say the nurse, the head doctor there is like, and I know like she has, Heather has like a dream or something like that. Again, they don't put Freddy in it, but it's like, she's like, let's just cut the evil out of him, and she's got like a Freddy glove, and you know they like, again, Freddy's only come out like once in this film up to this damn point. To where Julie, the babysitter, we really haven't talked about because she's there, but she's like not really doing much rather than, oh, we were just taking a nap like earlier in the film or whatever. But she's there like telling the two nurses, and one of the nurses is actually Wes Craven's like niece or something like that, and she looks like him when you see them both side to side. But it's funny, they're like, she's like, no, his mother specifically asked not to be like taking like whatever, like to go to sleep. And the other nurse is like, do it, and then like they stick him with the fucking sleeping sedative, whatever. And I'm like, oh my god, like yeah, like yeah. The nurses are like a gang that are just gonna like do whatever they want. You know what I mean?
They fucking strap him down. I mean, like,
it's ridiculous, dude. This whole, like, to me, like I had like you know, like they couldn't think of a fucking way to like make Freddy scary, so they had to think of like a different, you know, antagonists or whatever, right? To like, well, how can we make it seem like Heather's like up against it? It's like, oh, let's make the nurses bad people. Like, again, trying to like do a callback to part 3 where the nurse, well, Nurse Ratched, you know, the fucking, that one nurse from part 3, she was dealing with people that were like druggies, they've already tried to commit suicide. This is just a kid who's like, you know, having, you know, freaking out, having nightmares or whatever you want to say, you know. And like they're treating like Heather like she's some fucking criminal.
Right. And I mean, I just think to myself, I mean, this being the 90s, like lawsuits really became a thing where like the all-American battle cry, I'll sue, you know, that became a much more prevalent thing in the 90s than it was in the 80s. So like I could see a hospital behaving this way and doctors behaving this way toward a mother of a child if this was still in the 80s, but by 1994, where everyone left, right, and sideways saying, I'll sue, I can't imagine a hospital, you know, like you said, treating a mother like she's a criminal.
Yeah, and the guardian telling her, like, no, her mother doesn't want that. They do it behind the back, like in front, do it. You know, like, come on now.
Yeah, and I mean, forcing a type of treatment that the legal guardian is objecting to, and it's not a compelling, immediate life or death moment.
Yeah, it's just like whatever the fuck. And then we see Julie die again. Like I said earlier, it's just a copy and paste of part 1. Other than we could actually see Freddy now, which I like. I think that's the best. I remember watching the trailer and seeing Freddy like drag her against the wall and on the roof, and I was like, holy shit! Like, that's cool. If we didn't see every other fucking damn scene be like a callback to part 1, you know what I mean? Like, it's a fucking copy and paste, you know, of like, okay, what can I copy from part 1? What can I copy from part 2?
Yeah.
3, it was just too much. So they kill fucking Julie. So, you know, and Wes had originally like added some shit to where we were supposed to think that like Julie was like the one like doing the phone calls and shit like that too. So if you look in the film and you can see kind of like the eye she gives everyone, you can kind of see it. And like I remember seeing it too, like, you know, back when you're like really watching shit, like when you're not moving your eyes. Like nowadays it's kind of hard because, you know, you're doing other shit, you got a lot more going on. But I remember seeing this film when it first came out and saying that like I think Julie or the babysitter's got something to do with it, you know. But so they're all.
Can I just tell you like that? First of all, to address where you said about the Julie death scene,
Yeah.
I like that. And when I saw the trailer for it, that was one of the things that made me want to see this, because like, wow, this is just like the first two. This is gonna be great. And,
yeah,
and then,
it looks great. Yeah, no, it looks great.
It looks. They shot that. You couldn't shoot it more perfect. Now, as far as oh God, what was I gonna say?
How about the way Freddy looks? Because now you could actually see the whole Freddy.
And he looks like just the coloration on his face is a little bit different than on the other ones.
You can tell he's, to me at least, I don't know, but to me you can tell he's wearing a fucking mask. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't look like the way you see Freddy in 1, 2, or 3, 4, maybe 5. It started getting gimmicky, but here, like you see him. First of all, he's wearing these giant ass boots, right? And he's wearing like leather pants. The color of his sweater is a little bit different. He's wearing a fucking like a coat.
Yes, and I was gonna say, is it just me, or did he kind of remind you of Hamburglar wearing that trench coat?
He looks. I know, like they wanted to give him an upgrade, which I mean, after seeing him in 4, I mean 4 was okay, but 5 and 6, it's like, you know, yeah, he looks tougher. But we're comparing part 6 Freddy to part. Anything really, unless you had the Hamburglar coming out there, would have looked tougher than that one. I mean, so we're gonna add a trench coat just to add. Well, I think Wes's original idea, because he had talked about seeing a guy in the alley. It probably looked like that because he was wearing a trench coat, you know. But it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. To me, it's just like it just looks stupid. Like he's wearing a trench coat and the hat's a little bit different and his face is too over the top.
That is not the fedora he was wearing in the original ones, number 1. And number 2, you only see the sweater. He's never wearing a trench coat. And number 3, I've only had dark alley encounters with Grimace, not Hamburglars. So.
Yeah, I'm just like, what the fuck, you know? And then, you know, he ends up taking off because he's like now there's like a sleep. Now towards the very end, they decide to add that, oh, he could sleepwalk, you idiot, you know. So he leaves the hospital and crosses the highway, and we see like 50,000 Freddys across the fence or some bullshit. And it's kind of like, you know, if it's your first time seeing it, it's okay when you see like Heather like duck and, you know, avoid being decapitated by an 18-wheeler. Like okay, now it's an action movie. So like the film's like trying to throw everything they can at you at this point. And
I like the Freddy in the Sky thing though. I like when that, because that also happened in part 3.
Oh yeah, he picks up. Yeah, I forgot about. No, I'm thinking about the Freddy at the fence, but there's a lot of them. But yeah, he picks up Dylan, right? Like he's hanging him, making him hang over the cars. Yeah, that is cool. That is fucking cool. And yeah, I forgot that exactly another callback to part 3. I'm glad you put that. So I'm not just making this up, right? Like you can actually see like where these are like he's taking. I mean, how many ideas is that? Like at least 8 to 10 ideas of previous films that he's just throwing into his film. I mean, am I right?
There's a lot of them. You're not wrong in seeing the.
Yeah, it's like. Yeah, I'm not saying like, oh, he kills him with a knife. Like, no, I'm not like making it that ridiculous. You know, I'm saying like, Freddy's in the fucking sky picking somebody up. Well, part 3, he's in the sky pretending like he's controlling them the same way. You know, it's like, you know, like yeah, it's like Wes has like no ideas of his own. He's just kind of like. And copying.
It was Phil he killed in that scene, right?
Yeah, it was Phil, dude. Your favorite.
Yep.
Philip.
But you're right though. The point you made just now is borrowing of imagery from prior films.
Yeah, and all of them, it's like, and then you said they weren't good films, and you're gonna rip them off basically, you know. Um,
rather
and
than come up with your own original ideas.
yeah, he was against like doing any of these sequels, and he's gonna take all their ideas, and like we would have gotten this film as part 3, like when they came up for ideas for part 3. This is like not the exact script, but the premise, the ideas that he wanted was, how about Freddy attacks the actors from the original, and they're like, no, So I'm glad. I love Part 3. It's a great film. I'm glad we didn't get this film instead of Part 3. So she ends up going back home, and then she meets up with John Saxon, who's now like so wrapped up or whatever in this fucking twisted Wes Craven world to where he thinks he's Detective Thompson again, and he starts calling her Nancy. And then Nancy goes in, she's like, "Okay, Daddy." She when she's saying that, Freddy's like, pushing up against the sheet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
he drove a fucking cop car over to her house. What the fuck?
Oh, he did. I didn't even pay attention to that, dude. He drove a fucking cop car in her house. What the fuck? Yeah, I didn't even pay attention to it. I would just remember her saying like, "Okay, Daddy," and like Freddy's waiting to see if she goes along with it. Then he rips out, and I guess he takes Dylan, and then Dylan. Because they talk about it earlier in the film about the Hansel and Gretel gimmick. Again, another thing Wes Craven needs to rip off and like tries to like add to his story. Instead of like the breadcrumbs, he leaves like sleeping pills, so the mom follows him to the boiler room. But now it's not like a boiler room; it's like a Freddy, extravaganza Rome type kind of pillars everywhere.
If you saw that book. Well, but if you saw the Hansel and Gretel book that she was reading to him, the bedtime story to, the kind of like caged off prison furnaces that are in that Freddy's lair, so to speak, that's in the pictures on that book.
Oh yeah, so like you already know how Freddy's gonna die.
Yeah, I mean,
so
what the fuck? And yeah.
Go ahead. No, I mean like the whole ending's just a clusterfuck, I think. But
it's and you know something like
in the history of clusterfucks.
These guys say clusterfuck in history of clusterfuck. So the Detective Thompson thing, the John Saxon thing, living his gimmick reminded me of when they first set up the Ministry of Darkness, and then Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler are doing that. Well, there's a saying in our business called living your gimmick. There's another Vince Russo thing where you break kayfabe on TV. Now. So that happened here. Drives a fucking cop car to her house, insists on being Detective Thompson, and she calls him Daddy. Okay, great. Well, now she goes upstairs. He's made like a bed sheet tent, like the way kids do. But apparently he encountered Freddy in there, and that's how he got down to Freddy's lair. But he was thoughtful enough to leave sleeping pills along the way. I love you, mommy. But that's fine. But except you could do that in 1994. You can still get away with that. You do that today, they're gonna think, well, an adult Freddy playing with a child, that's child molestation. We can't have that on a movie.
How did Dylan get these sleeping pills? And like, cause I know in the hospital, like thinking about it, they gave him the pills and he wouldn't take them. Like he would put them underneath his pillow. I mean, like, was he there for like 6 weeks or something for him to come up with that many sleeping pills? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make any sense for him to be able to leave a trail for them.
Well, unless he's a natural entrepreneur and he was stealing them out of the prescription room and he was planning on selling them at school. I don't know. Which
we'll talk about in the remake, because I know like one of the guys, he like gets some adrenaline shots and is able to jack him no problem, no big deal, and get him and the working Nancy over. But so they're there, and Heather goes to Freddy's lair, and I'll be honest with you, I really don't remember anything other than Freddy doing a bunch of horrible one-liners. Oh, besides the fact that before he killed what's her name, Julie, he's like, ever played Skin the Cat? And I know people were like, well, this is a darker Freddy. I'm like, here you have Wes Craven who's gonna try and revive or not even revive, but give Freddy a good name again in a bad way, and he goes and gives him lines like, ever played Skin the Cat? And then he goes after Dylan. He's all like, like, come here, little piggy, like stupid shit like that. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, even part 5 had way better lines than this film had. Like, we'll just see, bitch. We'll see. You know, like way better.
Yeah.
You know, like way like you're gonna talk about being dark and Freddy like you're gonna. I mean, Wes, you're trashing everyone else for not making Freddy dark, and you come up with these fucking lines. You know what I mean? Like, it's so. What did you remember, or what did you like about the whole ending bullshit, dude? Anything that sticks out to you?
Well, one thing that stuck out to me, two things in that ending, and in that Freddy's lair or whatever you want to call it, is number one, for some reason he's got the 7 deadly sins inscribed on the walls of that lair by the furnace cages. And I'm like, I didn't know he was John Kramer, where he has to go judging his victims for things they do wrong. That's number one. And number two, thank you for getting that. And number two, you notice that he gets stuck trying to attack them. He gets stuck in that like black metal door window opening thing that he's trying to get through to attack him. And all he can do is lengthen his limbs to reach them. But I'm like, if this is a supernatural realm and you're kind of a supernatural being to begin with, I mean, why are you limited by that? Like, why aren't you able to shapeshift and get through that?
The whole ending's ridiculous and stupid now that I'm thinking about it. Like, there's like a snake, there's like a pond full of snakes or something, and then Freddy goes, "Pick a pet for the Rugrat, bitch." Like, pick a pet for the Rugrat, bitch. It's like she like I guess they're eels. I don't know what they are. She's like, "Fuck you," and like slams it in Freddy's eye, and it's just a ridiculous like. Okay, even if like you didn't like not like the beginning of the film, right? You know, or even if you did like the beginning of the first whatever 3/4 of the movie. Like, once you get to this ending, isn't it like so like stupid and ridiculous? Like, they were making Freddy, oh, we're just gonna show him the claws against the wall, we're gonna show the glove, we're gonna have the phone calls, and then we're gonna have him running around, come here, little piggy, I got some gingerbread for you. Like, what the? I mean, everything that Wes Craven was against, he's like throwing at the end, Yeah,
he makes him like a male, like the witch on Hansel and Gretel. It's just like. And then the way they beat him is he sticks out his tongue and the kid stabs his... It's like... Yeah. I just expect... If this is Freddy fucking Krueger, and they're in his home, his backyard, his habitat, well then, I mean, I just expect so much more, like, menacing and omnipotent powers from him, and then they have to think on their feet and find some way to... that it somehow uses his power against him and defeats him, and then they can return. Like, that's the kind of ending I'm conceiving of for something like this.
Doesn't Fred like he stabs him in the tongue and it turns into like a devil's tongue, just the way again like Freddy wasn't over enough on his own, they had to make him into the devil, but like I don't know if it was before or after it, but Freddy uses his tongue. Yeah, just like in part 3, and tries to like almost like the part 3 Freddy and like swallow Dylan whole with his head, like the tongue's all flapping around. I'm like, this isn't scary. This is like ridiculous. Like, it's stupid. You know what I mean? Like, it's gimmicky. Like Freddy's gonna swallow somebody whole, and it looks stupid. And then they slice his tongue, and then they burn him in there, and like Freddy burns in the furnace, and then like as they're burning him, like he's morphing into like a devil now. So like he's the highest evil. He's the devil. He's not Freddy, and it's like I'm just like okay, I'm like really confused at this point. And then at the end, I think Heather starts reading Dylan the book again. Like, I think it's Hansel and Gretel or something like that.
She does, and I'm glad you said, because I didn't me of all people, I should have seen that and thought of that, and I didn't. But yeah, you're right. Like they really did try to make it like Freddy is Satan, the devil, Lucifer, and that's in his lair is hell. And I mean, I guess the 7 deadly sins being written on the walls would kind of add to that imagery, but it just didn't occur to me until you said it. But yeah, that's true. But it's like Freddy isn't Lucifer. He's not Satan. He's not the devil. If we're going off of part 6, then I mean, the nature of his power is he was an ordinary human being with a proclivity toward evil. The demonic dream spirit demons, whatever, invaded his body and gave him these powers. So he has no power just intrinsically of his own.
Yeah, and I want to correct myself. She doesn't read him the Hansel and Gretel script. She reads him the Wes Craven script for the movie, so it's even more of a work. But yeah, they try and make Freddy like, so he wasn't over enough on his own being a child molester / murderer. We gotta make him the devil now. That's Wes Craven for you folks. So I love the first film. Like I said, like I don't want people like this. To me, is the most overrated Nightmare on Elm Street in the franchise, because I understand that they try to make it dark, but it just comes off as like gimmicky. I mean, maybe if you've never seen a horror movie before, you might like. Okay, maybe if you just saw part 1 and then you saw this, I guess maybe what Wes was thinking of is that you didn't see any of the other stuff. So maybe all these ideas that he's or deaths or whatever that he's doing are new to you. Then maybe you might find it kind of humorous or whatever. But even having Dylan screaming every fucking 10 minutes, 5 minutes is like, okay. Like we'll probably end up doing a review for the movie called The Babadook, dude, and I'm gonna like reference New Nightmare and this, like, and you're gonna start laughing because they're pretty similar. But now that we've seen the New Nightmare, dude, and I ask you this after every podcast, and we only have 2 more to go, folks. I'm pretty sure either Insidious, which are only 4. Or the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise will be one of our ones that we finish. I'm going to ask him how does he rank them. But how do you rank the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise up to part 7, dude?
Up to part 7, I'm probably going to still say 1, 3, 2, 5, 6, 4. Oh no, I'm sorry. 1, 3, 2. 3, 2. Let's go with 7, 5, 6, 4. 7, 5, 6, 4. Oh, okay. So you have this one better than the other ones, huh? I do, and here's what I'm going to say. The movie itself is not intrinsically wrong. It's how they handled it. As far as so I like the darker evil part 1 and 2 kind of feel it has, especially early on. I like Heather Langenkamp. I like, Robert Englund playing Robert. I think if they had used, instead of the stupid underlying reason of, well, we have to keep Freddy at bay by making movies about him. We need you to play Nancy one more time. Idiocy, stupidity, ridiculous, dumb. If they would have gone with your idea, like you had, and I think you said you had gotten it from someone else, but maybe I'm remembering what you said wrong. To use them as the Avengers, the Dream Warriors, all fighting Freddy together. That would have been. This would probably be in my top 3 if they had done that. But they fuck it up with that.
But they didn't do that.
They didn't do that. No, they went with the reverse fork shoot double cross. No, they did something else, and then they have this weird looking hell, Freddy's Lucifer Satan kind of ending, and it's kind of crazy, kind of dumb, not very enthusiastic, and yeah. But I'll tell you, I did also pop for you because you talk about Wes Craven borrowing influences from the prior Freddy movies. Well, he's borrowing movies from like 1940 movies because did you see how he fucking put that little note on the script when she comes back from hell and said, "Thank you for playing Nancy one more time"?
Yeah, I did see that.
Isn't that just like It's a Wonderful Life ending where he puts in Tom Sawyer, "Dear George, no man is a failure that has friends. Thanks for the wings."
Well, I've never seen It's a Wonderful Life, dude. So maybe this Christmas you'll get me over, dude, and we'll do It's a Wonderful Life review because I know you've seen it 137 goddamn times.
Oh, more than that.
Yeah. No, I would love for. I guess we'd have to do it in November to be able to do like a very Christmas, month, and we do all the Chris favorite Christmas movies, dude. For me, I have to rank it. Part 1 is my favorite. I used to say Part 3, but Part 1's definitely the one, dude. And then Part 3, Part 2, Part 5 is definitely grown on me. Part 6, Part 4, and then New Nightmare, just because when I watch a Freddy movie, I want to see Freddy, obviously, right? And this film has almost no Freddy other than pulling down Dylan into the casket, killing Julie, and then at the end. So, I mean, this is not a Freddy movie, you know what I mean? It's like, or Nightmare on Elm Street, there's no, like, they throw in, like, oh, you have to be asleep, but it's kind of like few and far between, like, it doesn't know what it wants to be, basically, for me, you know what I mean? Like, it's it's just like, let me think of all these ideas and just throw it in together and let's see what happens. And it's like very underwhelming, very confusing. And like, this is someone that's watched Part 4 and enjoyed it, Part 5 and enjoyed it, Part 6 and enjoyed it. But this one is just like, man, like everyone goes to, oh, Freddy's dark. I'm like, he's not even in the fucking movie. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's not even like, you're watching like a Freddy movie, and he's like not even in the movie. Like, he's hardly there. So yeah, it's my least favorite Freddy so far. Once we get to the other ones, it might change. We still got 2 more, like I said. But any other thoughts or comments on the New Nightmare, Christopher J?
No, I mean, I think that I've pretty much summarized how I feel about it, and I mean, it had its ups and downs, and we'll just keep going. We're on to Freddy vs. Jason next, and then the remake in 2010, which I actually did see in the theater, by the way.
Yeah, that one might kind of bump up a few spaces after I go through all these again. But hope you guys enjoyed this one, and like Chris said, we'll go ahead and see you on the next one. Peace.